Thank you for tuning in to another episode of NBA Talk with Jaywalk. I'm your host, Jonah Walkenfoos, and today we are going to be talking about the NBA awards that have been awarded to these players. And we're going to also be talking about, are the Nuggets in trouble? And we're going to be doing an NBA team preview, which is the Detroit Pistons. So make sure to stay tuned. Okay, so if you don't know, the NBA awards have been given out to these players and staff for the NBA for the regular season of the NBA. And let's kind of get right into it. So let's go from my opinion, least important to most important. This is my opinion of kind of the order. So, I mean, they're all very important, but, let's go from smallest to biggest award. So, first up, we're going to go NBA Hustle Award. It goes to the player that hustles the most, and that goes to Alex Caruso for the Chicago Bulls. Congratulations to Alex Caruso. We're not going to go too deep into most of these awards just because some of them just aren't that big. The next one is the Clutch Player of the Year. This goes to the player that was the clutchest. I believe they go by the 2-minute mark or just a certain deficit or like difference in points between the two teams. And that goes to Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors. Congratulations to Steph Curry for that. Then we're going to go to Coach of the Year, which this is where it gets debatable. I think Coach of the Year is one of the most important awards, but I guess I'm not going with what I said earlier. But anyways, the Coach of the Year goes to Mark Daigneault. I believe that's how you say it. And he is the head coach for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He led a young team, which usually when you think about a young team, you think about a bunch of high ego players, and he led all of those players to be able to come together and become a very good team. Not just that, the number one seed in the Western Conference, and he also obviously he had an MVP candidate in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a Rookie of the Year finalist in Chet Holmgren. But overall, that is excellent coaching. This team was, I believe, the number 7 or 8 seed last year in the playoffs, and now they became the number 1 seed in 1 year, and that's not just Chet Holmgren. That's just good coaching. That's just being able to get a team that was young last year and be able to help them get back together and group up for this next year to become the number 1 seed, especially for how young they are. They're going to be a team that's going to be looking dominant for the years to come. So congratulations to Mark Daigneault for getting Coach of the Year. Then we're going to go to Most Improved Player, which goes to the player that basically made the biggest jump from last season to this season. And that's going to be Tyrese Maxey from the Philadelphia 76ers. I beg to differ on this one. I'm not going to be biased, or this may be a little biased to a lot of people, or they might think this is biased, but I believe Kobe White deserved it. I think he made the biggest jump. But overall, Tyrese Maxey made a massive leap. Obviously, going from basically a borderline all-star to a solidified all-star. So Tyrese Maxey really became dominant, especially when Joel Embiid went out, and he went out with that injury. Tyrese Maxey really stepped up for the 76ers to be able to help them lead them to the playoffs. Obviously, I think this 76ers team still needs like one piece until they can be championship contenders. But overall, with Tyrese Maxey's jump, you never know going into next season. And if Joel Embiid can stay healthy. I've heard a lot of things about Tobias Harris, but we'll talk about that in future episodes. So the next award is going to the Sixth Man of the Year, which is Naz Reid from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Naz Reid obviously playing on the bench because the people starting ahead of him are Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, two very good big men. But Naz Reid coming off the bench, he was really dominant, did what he needed to do, and he helped the team win and led them to the number 3 seed, and they look like one of the championship winning teams of this season so far. So Naz Reid has a big part in that. So shout out to Naz Reid and congratulations to him for winning Sixth Man of the Year. Next up, we got Rookie of the Year. I think this was a no-brainer. It goes to Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs. Had a very dominant season, even though the team was struggling. Obviously, when you're the number 1 pick, your team's realistically has been struggling and probably still will be struggling. The Spurs are still missing a couple pieces, but they do have something to be very excited about in Victor Wembanyama. I do believe that he can help lead this team to multiple championships in the future. They do need some more pieces, but Victor Wembanyama is definitely a good person to build around and a good piece to use for a championship team in the future. So I do have a lot of high praise for him, and he's a very dominant player starting year one. I cannot wait to see what he's going to do in year two. Then we got Defensive Player of the Year, and that goes to Rudy Gobert. I also think this award should have gone to Victor Wembanyama. I think he should have won it over Gobert, but to be honest with you, I think Wembanyama is going to win it for the next couple of years, so Gobert can get his shine right now. But yeah, Rudy Gobert was dominant defensively overall. He's won multiple Defensive Players of the Year awards, and yeah, I mean, he was one of the reasons why this Minnesota team was extremely dominant on the defensive end, and they still are dominant. And you're seeing it kind of rub off on other players for Minnesota. As you saw, Rudy Gobert, congratulations, by the way, on having his child, or his wife had his child, but Rudy Gobert overall. You could kind of see the Timberwolves playing very tough defensively, and you could kind of tell it's Rudy Gobert rubbing off on them, and he's helping them become a very good defensive team, and that's why they are kind of the front runners to win a championship, if you consider that, or you can consider Boston or Denver. Anyways, the final award goes to the most valuable player, the player that was the most dominant in the regular season, and it is going to the three-time MVP, Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Congratulations to Nikola Jokic. Dominated all season. In my opinion, well-deserved. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic were the other finalists. All of them are not from the U.S., which is insane to think about. It's really cool to see how the basketball world is kind of transforming into not just the U.S., but also the rest of the world. So we're starting to see the rest of the world players starting to dominate in this NBA and win a lot of MVPs. Obviously, we don't have the all-NBA teams, the all-defensive, and the all-rookie teams. They are still to be announced. But congratulations to all these players and coach who won these awards. These are great awards to win, and they are very, very, they're to be honored for these awards because, I mean, these are hard awards to get, and very few get them. Obviously, as you could tell, I could just list them off. So congratulations to those players. All right, so we're going to get into the next topic, and it's talking about the three-time MVPs team, the Denver Nuggets, and I don't know, but they seem like they might be in a little bit of trouble. They are down 0-2 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. They do play tomorrow. I am recording this on Thursday, May 9th, so they play on Friday, May 10th, against the Timberwolves in Minnesota. Minnesota won both games of the series so far in Denver. And Denver, at least the second game, looked very out of it. They mentally looked like they were all disturbed, and they just wanted to get the game over with. The refs were very questionable. I feel like they were kind of more towards Minnesota, but I also feel like the refs were just letting both teams play, and I really like watching that kind of basketball when you watch the referees giving the defense the benefit of the doubt. And I think the Nuggets just kind of let that get to their head. They started complaining a lot, and they started to play out of their game. I do believe the Nuggets still can win this series. It's going to be a lot harder now, though, because now with the Timberwolves taking 2 games at your house, now you have to go to their house, and you still have to win at least 1 game to keep the series alive. And that could be tough. It could be tough for Denver, especially since last game they were really out of it. Jamal Murray obviously fined $100,000 for throwing a heat pad onto the floor. That kind of just explains the whole night for Denver. They just really struggled. They didn't look like they were playing Nuggets basketball. They looked like they were just kind of going out there. They just didn't look like they prepared very much for this Timberwolves team. And this Timberwolves team, they didn't come to play around. They're here to stay, and they want to go home with the championship under their belt. So Denver's got to really wake up, and going into next game, they got to make a statement game, and they got to beat the Timberwolves bad. Otherwise, I think the Nuggets could be in a lot of trouble. I don't think they're going to get swept. I think, if anything, they're going to pull off at least one win. I still think this series could go to 7. I think the Nuggets, this was a great wake-up call for the Nuggets, and this is going to be a great way of looking at, is this Nuggets team good enough to win a championship again this year? Especially, let's just see how they could bounce back going into this next game, because I do believe that the Denver Nuggets could be in trouble if they lose this next game. So next up, we're gonna start doing this, especially since the off season's coming in. We kind of want to have some content to be able to talk about. So we're gonna be doing team previews on basically how they did during the season and what they should look into going into the future, especially into this off season. So the team I want to talk about first is the worst team, the team that finished the worst in the NBA record-wise, is the Detroit Pistons. They finished 14-68 on the season, which is really, really bad. But the Pistons had a rough season overall. They broke the record of the biggest losing streak of all time with 28 straight losses. I mean, that's bad. That's bad alone. But I said this in a previous episode. They won as many games as the Detroit Lions this season. And to clarify, the Lions played 65 less games than the Pistons. The Pistons just looked rough. They just looked out of it. They're very young. They're kind of what I thought. This is kind of what a young team looks like, except teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder and kind of, I guess, if you want to say the Houston Rockets. This team just looked like they didn't really have a leader. They also had a lot of injuries. Jalen Duren was out a couple times. Cade Cunningham, I believe, was out a couple times. Jaden Ivey. Asar Thompson was out for the rest of the season. Overall, this team just needs... they need a veteran player. I do believe they should trade for a star. I think this team's good to build for the future. They have a lot of promising pieces. They have Cade Cunningham. They have Jalen Duren. They have Asar Thompson. They have Jaden Ivey. If you want to consider Isaiah Stewart in that. They do, and Marcus Sasser even. They do have a lot of pieces to build off of, but I do believe that they maybe should look to trade some of those pieces to get a bona fide star. And this doesn't just give you a star on your team. This leads you to bring in other players that are going to want to play with that star along with those younger players. So I think a star you can maybe look at, and they were looking into this trade deadline. This last trade deadline was Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, his value's at an all-time low. They may not even have to trade one of their younger players, maybe Isaiah Stewart. But overall, I think he can help lure in free agents. He can help lure in people that are just going to want to play for the Pistons, because not a lot of people want to play for the Pistons, especially after having only a 14-win season. But they also have a great coach in Monty Williams, so I think the Pistons could definitely turn it around. I think they just need to make a couple moves, but it's all in the realm of possibility. It's not like it's out of the realm of possibility. They have the opportunity to become a lot better of a team. They just need to go out and do it and make the moves. Some notable dates for the Pistons is actually on May 12th, which is this Sunday, which is Mother's Day. They will be competing for the number 1 pick in the NBA draft lottery, and that will take place on TV at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on May 12th. So if they could get the number 1 pick, I think the number 1 pick is supposed to be Alex Sarr, but and that could be a great piece for them, and that would help them build more towards the future. Alongside, this would then give them maybe a little bit of flexibility to go out and trade players like Isaiah Stewart to go get that star they need, like a Zach LaVine. The Pistons, if they could get their number 1 pick, like I said, that would be huge for them. But I do think the Pistons have some things to be excited about for the future. I think Cade Cunningham is a star in the making. I think when he's healthy, he could be one of the best guards in the league. I think Asar Thompson is a very good two-way player. I think what he needs to work on the most is kind of his jumper. We kind of saw a little bit of a streaky shooting for him, and that could be an issue, but I think since he's very young, he's still got a lot of time to work on that. And then you got players like Jalen Duren, who looked very dominant down low, constantly getting double-doubles. And then Jaden Ivey, who also plays very similarly to Zach LaVine, where he's quick, he likes to play quick, he's very athletic, and he can shoot the ball very well. So they do have a lot to be excited about, but they have a lot to be concerned about for the future. I mean, you have a young team only winning 14 games. That could be a problem. Even with the number 1 pick, I don't think that's going to help them win a crazy amount of more games. I think if they could get a star, though, that can help them get up and just continually progress throughout season after season after season. But overall, the Pistons, they've got some work to do. But I do think they can be a very dominant team in the future if they can trade for a star. So let me know for this next episode on next Friday. I want to know what team I should do next. I'm going to be doing teams that have already been eliminated, so any team that's still alive in the playoffs, I'm not going to do them yet. But let me know a team you want me to do next for their off-season, maybe their off-season plan. But yeah, I want to continue. I want to start doing this, especially since my random stat line of the week's kind of done right now, especially with it being the playoffs. There's not really a player that's just going to come out and surprise the world. So yeah, let me know the next team you want me to do. Make sure to stay tuned for the next podcast. Follow me on Instagram. It's NBA Talk with _JWalk3 if you want to hear about news and just when the future podcasts are going to be. I know I said this in the past, but I really do want to continue to work on my Instagram page. So if you can share that with other people, to hit the follow button and follow me around on socials so they can figure out the news and just kind of help spread the word about this podcast, I would really appreciate it. Always give me advice on what to do in the future. I appreciate every single one of you that gives me all this advice and helps me to better this podcast and better myself when talking. So I appreciate all of you. God bless. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and stay tuned for the next episode.